Hi. Hey, welcome back to Holoboff's Happy Hour. We're here with Dallas Tambeau for a second episode of wine knowledge. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
So today when I was in the liquor store thumbing around trying to figure out what wine I wanted to talk about, I thought we should give some attention to our own backyard. So we've gone with Quails, British Columbia, Okanagan, one of my favorite vineyards. Great place to visit.
Yeah.
And we're doing the Old Vines Foch. So Dallas, right away I want to ask, what does it take to put Old Vines on the label?
Well, technically, I mean, had to do a little research on it. I'll be honest. Just the simple fact that with wine, it's very particular, and some people have their opinions. But in the way of definition, the legalities on it don't exist. There's no real thing for old vines. In our case with Quails, the one we're drinking today, they had started planting these vines 50 years ago. That's considered an old vine. 10 years, not so old. Unless the vineyard was maybe 10 years old, then that would be their oldest vine. But an old vine is a very well hand-groomed and maintained vine for a long period of time. So it's just what you see on the label. It's an old vine.
One of the reasons I went with Foch rather than their Pinot Noir or another, varietal like a Cab Sauv, which you'll commonly see at a dinner party, people default to things they know. I want us to, explore some new things, some fun things. So right away I look at Foch and I'm like, what the hell is that? Is that the grape varietal? Is that some dude's name?
I thought about that first because I had tasted it with a friend of mine's dad, who I became friends with too, Anthony Chalmers at Quails. Good man. He's a sommelier himself, and he's recognized through Canada. But I tasted it, and I bought the bottle immediately after the tasting, and this is 10 years ago. And I bought it right after I tasted it. I wasn't even listening because we're on a wine tour, so we're already sipping everything in sight. So at this point, I'm like, this one tastes good because it's the only one I could taste because my mouth is starting to burn out. So I'm like, I got to get this one and try it again the next day with some food, some barbecue, because we're in the Okanagan. It's beautiful. Barbecue, some steak. Maybe I'll talk about it a little bit later with food pairings. But so I got it not knowing anything about it. I did a little research. It turns out it was this crazy commander of the French army in the First World War, which is a pretty cool little thing. The guy actually looks pretty surly, so you would expect the wine to be just as aggressive as what he looks like.
So to clarify, the Foch is the grape, right?
Yeah, they renamed it. It was a hybrid from France, Alsatian, so it was a cool air grape. This guy's friends with cold air. It was a cold air grape. It's a hybrid French from Alsace that tends to be grown in cold air, and the Canadians really picked it up. Some Northern Americans picked it up, but it's really a cold air guy because he works really well with cold air. So, yeah.
So we opened this half an hour ago. Let it breathe a bit. Would you recommend
sip?
Would you recommend decanting this wine?
You know what? It doesn't need decanting. It's quick to glass.
Yeah.
But I mean, for us, we've been drinking wine for so long. We can see what the wine will do in a little bit, and there's no harm in airing out a wine, as all it'll do is it'll come into its own. We've opened it an hour ago. This will be great in 5 hours. We could drink half the bottle and have the other half tomorrow. It'll still be delicious.
Right.
I think you can have this bottle open for 2 days and it would still be premium.
So this is a big wine.
Very big, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get into it.
Good pour. Nice twist.
Thank you, chef.
Yes, chef. It's dark. Like you can tell already as soon as you're pouring it. If you're in a dim lit restaurant, it'll look even darker. But in here, the lighting's great, and you can still see how dark that is. So that's not always a teller. I've had Pinot Noirs that are very thin looking, that have more body than some Cabs I've had. I know it's a faux pas to say, but don't trust the color of your wine always. Trust all of your senses.
What do you mean by
olfactory.
What do you mean by that?
So I'm seeing a dark wine. I'm like, oh, this is going to be something that someone like my grandma who likes a Sauv Blanc wouldn't like, or she likes lighter, thinner wines. Well, you can't trust that. So you
don't assume because it's dark that it's full of tannins and going to punch you in the mouth.
Book by its cover.
Right.
Yeah. So make sure you trust your things like your olfactory. You get your nose, your mouth, and your eyes. Use them all. Take a good look at it. And
let's go in for a sniff.
Yeah. Sniffy sniff, as they say.
Oh,
it's great. It's big, right? A little bit acid because it's still a little fresh open, only an hour ago, so we're getting a little bit of the alcohol content. I'm thinking this is like maybe a 15%. I didn't even look at it before.
I think
14.5%.
Yeah, 14.5.
So she's big with that alcohol content. You want it to lighten up a little bit. That's why you open up wine and let it breathe so that it can settle itself. Because right now it's really anxious. We just gave it CPR.
Right.
It's shocked that it's back to life.
Yeah.
We need to let it realize that it's alive now and it's back and needs to relax.
I want to talk about price point a little bit. This was a $30 bottle, and in the wine world, the prices are often determined, kind of like collecting, or not necessarily for a $20 bottle, but we often hear the term, oh, it drinks like a $50 bottle when you're talking about a $30 bottle, and that means like it's an amazing wine for the price. So one thing as we go through this wine and wines moving forward, we always want to relate like what's in the glass, what's in our mouth, and the experience we're getting from this wine. Is it relatable to the price we're paying at the store? So
yeah, I see what you're saying. You could find yourself in a position where you're like, oh, this one's $40. It's got to be good. This will impress them. But you can buy $40
fall short. Totally.
Yeah. And you can buy $12 gems.
Right. So we want to discover that stuff. We want to find the scores and help you guys pick wine that is going to blow your friends away at the dinner parties and not break the bank. You don't have to go out and buy a $100 bottle of wine for it to be great.
And you know what? You saying that, it was all the wine lists I've ever made have been based around find the big ones for little dollars.
Right.
So there's a lot of people that just automatically get the really expensive wines because that's where people spend their money. Well, you don't have to do that. You could find yourself impressing a group of people who only drink $1,000 Caymus Reserve or First Growths or what have you. But you can also blow them away in a blind tasting. I've seen a lot of blind tastings where people are calling wines that are $1,000 for First Growths.
What was that documentary where that guy started making counterfeit wine, and he would literally take like 6 to 10 to 12 different like $12 wines, and his palate was so refined that he could take a little bit of each crappy average wine.
Yeah, he's making swamp water.
Recreate $1,000 bottles, $10,000 bottles. Yeah, he'd steal the labels.
I remember seeing that. I can't remember because I had a few bottles.
We'll have to. I'll Google that and put it at the bottom.
Put it right here.
So we've had our. What did you get on the nose right away?
Well, right off the bat it was high alcohol. So while we chatted, I gave it a bit of a spin. I let the oxygen get to it because wine's in stasis. Get some oxygen in there.
Right.
Don't be afraid to do that. I know it's obnoxious when people breathe it in their mouth. I know it's obnoxious smelling a tool. I don't do it very often. I should say I do it all the time, even at dinner, unconsciously. But so nose.
I'm getting some tobacco on that for sure.
Yeah, and there's even like a little savory right off the bat. Maybe even a little cigar, like rich like cigar paper. People say, "Oh, it smells like cigars." That's one of those terms that everybody says.
It's easy to throw out there. Give me a
the paper
tennis balls in August analogy.
The paper inside the cigar tin that you pull your cigar out of. There's that little cedar paper in there. That's what I'm getting.
Cool.
Not the cigar itself.
Good job.
I'm getting the paper. So.
All right, let's have a taste.
Yeah.
What do you get? This is the expert. Level 3 sommelier, Dallas Tambeau. You can follow his Instagram at Cydia and Tambeau. It's a lot of food portrait postings. Great chef, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
No
That's
problem.
Very generous. I right off the bat with the mouth, It's big. It's still running through my mouth. It's like the legs on the glass. I don't know if you can see it in the shoot there, but it's like the legs on the glass. It's lasting. It's rolling through my mouth just like the legs on the glass are. So I'm even saying savory. I'm gonna go down like olives, black olives. I get black olives in there. We can talk some savory stuff, some sage. I don't know if you get that in there. I mean, that's the thing about wine. It's an individual effort on your palate. We all have different palates. I feel some of this stuff, but it's generally safe to say this is a big wine, and you will get your chocolates, your cigars, your woods, your oaks,
right.
Stuff like that. So,
cherry in there for sure.
Yeah, right.
So as we're tasting, let's talk a little bit about, the first, second, and third base, if you will, of, when it hits the front of your tongue, your lips, versus as you swallow, it's hitting the taste buds at the back, and then you let it linger. And for me, great wine is something that I'm going to continue to taste for a minute to 2 minutes after.
I'm still chewing it down.
Right?
It's a big wine.
That's a great wine because, you're not going back for another sip. You're not, craving or longing for more. You can sit at your dinner party and enjoy yourself.
Good point. This is definitely a sipper wine. This is one of those ones where you can sit and have a sip and enjoy yourself. You balance it through your dining experience or your guest experience. I'm hanging out with you. This isn't a wine that I'm gulping down, though it is a gulpable wine. I think it's more of the caliber of wine that you can sit and enjoy. This is date and conversation wine with good food.
Yeah.
Primary. You could drink it at the barbecue with the boys watching football, but I think primarily this is a wine that you would slow sip and enjoy. It's romantic.
I really like the finish on this wine. So finish, that'd be third base, 30 seconds after you've had your last sip. What are you tasting? What are you feeling? And for me, it's.
Do you find it's a little thick in the mouth? This is.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure this is malolactic. I should have done a little more research on it. I trust my palate enough and our conversation enough that we could kind of bang it out and peg some of the finer points in this. And I'm pretty sure there's malolactic fermentation involved, which is commonly used in Chardonnay.
Can you tell us what you mean by that?
Malolactic fermentation. It's just it's kind of like when you drink a Chardonnay and it feels really milky and creamy.
Yeah.
Malolactic fermentation, without going too far down science land.
Yeah.
Malolactic fermentation gives you that creamy, milky feel. So the longevity of the wine that we're feeling in our mouth, malolactic fermentation. So it's still thick in our mouth, right? That's that third that you're talking about. That third is that lingering, creamy mouth fullness.
So to get a little bit scientific for a minute. That is a process that the winemaker implements during the creation of the wine, and you wouldn't do that with every grape varietal.
No, it's less common than it is more common. We do it with Chardonnays because if you want a creamy, large mouthfeels, you go with the malolactic fermentation style. Malolactic fermentation, I know it sounds much like milk.
Right.
It's because it's very similar. It's got a creaminess to milk. That's what that gives you. So that's what we're feeling in there, is that malolactic fermentation, which isn't very common. It's very common in Chardonnay unless it's steel aged.
Now that you explain that to me, I do get that. I get that around second base.
Cool, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's a good way to keep it in your mouth.
Yeah. Nice and
right?
Creamy, if you will.
Longevity, yeah. I can't stop sipping it because it reminds me, I haven't had this wine in a little while, and this 2018 is a new vintage to me. A little young. I'm sure you could sit this around for a couple years, but it's great to drink right now, and I haven't had it so long. It's so delicious. At its price point, like you were talking earlier,
yeah,
$30, you could turn around, you could blind taste this, upwards of hundreds of dollars bottle wine. You could probably...
Really? You think so?
Yeah, I absolutely think so. I think it's competitive with some of the big boys around, considering it's Canadian.
Yeah.
And it's an old vines Foch, which is not a very common stylized grape. You can't sit around in a room and everybody talk about Foch, but you can talk about Cab.
Yeah.
Right? This is the interesting one you bring to the party. and everybody's caught up in it because there's a bit of a story to it.
Yeah.
Crazy
So
commander,
important.
right?
Yeah, that's super important to me. When I first got into wines, it was Cab, and then
We're Calgary. Cabs are the thing.
Malbec was.
They say, I was talking to you, we had a chat earlier about it, and default wines, people get scared of wine lists that they don't know, and they go, Cab Sauv.
That's fear of
Malbec.
being judged.
Yes, absolutely it is.
Where
Absolutely it is, because
it's
this world has turned so pretentious that
Yeah.
maybe that's why we're doing it, to make it a little more approachable.
If you're going into a party, it's your partner, your wife's, your husband's party, and you're trying to impress people, like, it takes a lot of like self-awareness
Yeah.
to walk in with a Foch and say to a room full of strangers, full of successful people, you got to try this Foch. It's real safe to buy a big California Cab
Yeah.
and walk in there and have everybody in the room identify with it and high five you because you got something they know.
Yeah, and where we are now in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, we are in a place where a lot of people who are wine enthusiasts in the city just fall to cabs because that's big California Cab. That's where we always land.
Yeah.
People need to get out there and get things like this Old Vine Foch.
Right.
This is our backyard, like you said, right off the hop when we started. This is our backyard, and they are aging and growing some of the best wines I've tasted. This Quails Gate's absolutely stunning. Drink it at the vineyard, it's even more stunning. I could drink it at the island with you and in Calgary, and it's great, right? So
I don't think it'll ever taste better than at the vineyard.
no.
Yeah, that restaurant there is phenomenal.
Pinching the grapes.
Yeah. So speaking of restaurants and eating, what would you cook with this, chef?
You know what? I'm a bit ground level when it comes to cooking with wines like this. I think that every wine has its friend. Though I would drink this wine with pancakes, my wine preference would be a brisket. I would go.
There you go.
Brisket.
Thanks for not just saying a steak, because at the end of the day, it's a big red wine. Obviously, it's going to go great with a steak.
Yeah, I'll have the ribeye.
Yeah.
Well,
that's a no-brainer.
You're already gone out of the box by getting this wine varietal in itself. Why not get out of the box a bit more? Have some ground level barbecue and just have a nice glass of wine with it.
If it was me cooking, I immediately think of like sweet potato, root vegetable, parsnip, beet.
Yeah,
going to be great sides with this. And a brisket. And you don't
want to disguise it too much. Brisket's nice. All the stuff you put with it, I think this guy carries everybody along with it. I wouldn't say go ahead and make yourself your homemade barbecue sauce. I don't want to get crazy about it, but if you put a couple ounces of this in your household barbecue sauce that you got in your fridge, stir it up. This will spice it up. Warm up your barbecue sauce with 2 ounces of this wine. You're going to a different world now. Cook with it a little bit. It's a little pricey. People don't tend to cook with $30 wines.
Right.
Don't be afraid to use a nice wine while you're sipping it in the kitchen, cooking it up. Put a couple ounces in your food.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's great. I'd like to taste more of this. Maybe now that we've done this this Canada thing in the Quails Gate, maybe we continue down the line with them because it's a real great vineyard.
Yeah, if you have a wine that you'd love for us to talk about. If you're enjoying what you see, please subscribe. We're going to try and keep putting out content for you guys. We love wine, and we love bringing value to you, the viewer, educating. I want to thank Dallas for taking time for being here with us.
Just love it.
Yeah.
We drink wine and talk about it. It's great.
Cheers.
Cheers, man.
Cheers.
Cheers, everyone.